Greetings and good evening, everyone. I am Julian B. Kiganda of Emerge Live, and I am so excited for this conversation with this amazing lady here that you all are going to get to know a little better. But before we jump into the conversation, I always like to ask folks as you're coming in, please introduce yourself, let us know where you're from. We like to welcome our guests. And share this out actually, because I think this is going to be a really insightful conversation, especially in the space and times that we are living in right now, where we need women and people like Kate more than ever. And that's one reason I'm really excited about this conversation. So, welcome everyone. Excuse me. Again, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself in the comments. Let us know where you are from. And then we're going to just dive right in for those of you who are here and are ready to hear what Miss Kate Byrne has got to say. Listen, we're about to bring the fire. We're going to bring the fire today. So welcome. Welcome to our Emerge Live Unfiltered conversation. And today we are going to talk about going beyond good intentions and the secrets to being an effective ally. So I'm sure if you all are online in social media, wherever you are, you have been seeing all the chatter about, the revocation of affirmative action. You have all these people who are trying to do away with diversity and inclusion initiatives and really just rolling back a lot of the gains that marginalized communities have made over the past few decades. And though we've made progress, there is still a lot of work to be done. And that's one reason why I'm so excited to have this conversation. And I want to say hi to Viola and Ashley. Thank you for joining us. Because I think we're living in a time where these conversations are actually more important than ever. There's a lot of people who talk about diversity and inclusion and equity and all of the things, right? There's letters being added on a regular basis, but we'll stick to diversity, equity, and inclusion for this conversation. And they talk about it, but not necessarily actually doing anything about it. And so tonight you are in for a treat because I met this amazing lady through Viola Llewellyn, who I interviewed a couple weeks ago, and she talked about turning clarity or gaining clarity from chaos. And Viola only knows great people, and Kate, I have found, is one of those amazing people. So, Kate, I want to welcome you to our Emerge Live Unfiltered conversation for this evening. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for including me. And Vi, thank you so much for making the amazing introduction. I don't know if anyone, probably everyone listening has had that experience where you come across a person and you meet them and you think, oh, there you are. We're picking up where we left off. So we must have made some agreement some other time and place where, okay, we're going to get down. We're going to get to it. We're going to really roll our sleeves up. We're going to get busy. We're going to get work done. And that's literally what I feel like with Julian, her greater community, and definitely with Viola. So I'm really honored, humbled, and excited to be a part of the conversation, and happy to help in any way I can.
My gosh. Thank you so much, Kate. So I really want to start with just you introducing yourself, giving us some of your background. And then really, because I think the work that you've done over the course of your career speaks to your values. So I would love to first have you introduce yourself and give us some background on who you are. For those of us, those of you who are joining, there's information about Kate in the description. But I really want to hear from her. I want you all to hear from her, and then talk a little bit about why you felt it was so important that you lived out your values in the work that you did. So let's start with the intro.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So I actually believe that the way my whole life started played a big role in answering that bigger question of why it is I've decided to live out my life and live out with purpose and helping those who so often are not get a chance to speak or have a chance to hold the mic. But I was the youngest of four. I was a surprise. Ta-da, who knew? My closest sibling is 9 years older. What does that mean? That meant I spent my entire early years around really tall people who did never let me speak, would never hear. And so much so I wanted to take up space. I'm literally, to this day, I'm a toe walker. I would try to get taller. I tried to get bigger. I went on, grew up in a family where it was always just a given, if you're sitting there feeling sorry for yourself, that's a waste of time and incredible energy. There's always somebody you could help. Stop thinking about yourself, thinking about others. Something I live every single day. And got my start in marketing, I'd say advertising. So advertising, and then went into media and held senior roles at, again, always sort of these startup business, because I was always interested in business in particular. So, and more of entrepreneurial nature. So at Inc. magazine and at Business Week, I started their small business edition. At Inc., I started their tech edition. And then at Fast Company, I was the interim publisher, being one of the first female business book publishers, business magazine publishers, and was really the first to do it from the West Coast.
So wait, before you continue, I'm big on making sure we, one, give you your flowers, and two, recognize that milestone. Because as women, we tend to brush over our accomplishments and our first and what we've done. So I want to just commend you for being bold enough to take up space and be the first to do that.
Well, thank you. And really what it was, you all, was I sat there and I looked, like when I was playing soccer, I figured, okay, I love soccer. I want to play more. What do I need to do? I need to become left-footed. So I did. Similarly, in publishing, okay, I didn't really, fashion magazines are fabulous and they're wonderful and there's a huge purpose for them. But really my passion, I thought, wow, I could make a real difference because there aren't a lot of people that look like even me in that place. So that can't be right. So I want to be able to, technology is obviously going to be a big thing moving forward. So I want to have a voice at that table because then I can get more of the people that I know who are really smart, who are being asked to, and we've all been there, right? Could you get the coffee? Will you take the notes? Will you show so-and-so where to sit? Will you get their, all that stuff. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. I think, one of the most horrifying points in my early career was it was in advertising, and I was in the ladies' room and I was getting ready because I was so excited. I had this female senior accounts executive. She was great. And I thought, wow, someone to look up to. Maybe someday I could be her. And then she's sitting there and she's putting on her lipstick, putting on her hair. And then she bends down and she unbuttons her button. And then she zhuzhes. And I'm like, what are you doing? And she said, oh, I'm undoing my iffy button. Let me do yours. And I thought, ew, get your hands off my buttons. And I thought, that's a little quote right there. There's no way that nothing is worth that. And so I realized that if that was what it took in those days to get up that chain, that was not a world for me. And I wasn't able to do it. So then what happened was when I was at Fast Company, my then editor-in-chief and now husband created.
That was a good takeaway. That was a good
takeaway. Little editorial, little. We created the Social Capitalist Awards, which was essentially doing good by doing well. And that was one of those Shazam moments where there was a profound thud. And I thought, oh my gosh, one, how is it we're not living like that and building companies that take care of our people and our planet?
Well, can I pause you for 1 second? Because I think, and I'm going to probably do that a lot because I know what happens a lot of times. A lot of times we will do these things and they're phenomenal, but we kind of just, keep it moving. We forget like how amazing those things were that we did. So I'm going to probably do that often in this conversation. What I want to know, and I'm sure the people watching also are interested to know, you're working at this huge magazine. I used to get Fast Company. It was one of my favorite business magazines. So that's really dope that you work there. What inspired you? What was the need that you saw to create the social capital, social impact awards?
social capital. And
Social
that was
capital.
really important, because I think that's a piece of the whole impact space that has been lost, is that it is social capital. Capital, as in financial capital, social capital, political capital, right? That's a very broadly defined term. And I really mean it in its broadest of all definitions. And it was really John and his editorial team that started discovering these companies in cities where they weren't getting some, policies passed and some funding taking place, that were taking local challenges and issues into their own hands. So places that were, creating, taking over urban deserts and making local food gardens in people's front lawns, right? People that were hiring and building out gardens in San Quentin, because I lived in California, right? So you had all these people that were on death row, et cetera, planting these amazing gardens, and they were taking the plant from that, and then turning it around and using it in restaurants.
Wow.
So that while those people were going to sadly live out the rest of their days there, and yes, we can get into conversation, right, wrong, whatever, but that's where they were going to be, at least they had a sense to contribute as well. And so when I saw that there were these people that were doing this, and then if this was shortly before, say, Tom's, the toothpaste company, and also, and the shoe company, right? Buy one, get one. It was before Warby Parker, buy a pair of the BOGO kind of things. And it just sort of initiated, because I think more and more, I think of it as like a map, and different people were like little idea bubbles were going off on people's heads saying, oh my God, that's a great idea. I could do that. I could do that. I could do that. Or as a corporation, people were saying, you know what? We could create a whole new revenue stream and test this and increase our relevance. And frankly, oh my goodness, really be helping the communities, our employees, but our broader community, the vendors from whom we gather all our resources from.
So it sounds like you all were really at the forefront almost of social impact, right? Because really, when you think about the way people are building businesses now, it's almost expected that your business is going to have some kind of social impact built into the culture, because that's become such a value for people.
Well, and it's this whole generation, the Z's, the Zillennials, the Z's. And thank you, God, for all of you, because they're still, for a longest time, right? There are a lot of corporations that were saying, sure, we're doing it, kind of like how they do DEI. And there's a term for that kind of allyship, and I'll get into that a little bit later. But what would happen is they would say they were doing it, but they weren't really, or they were really doing just the bare minimum of it. And so my dream had always been, and we're getting there, where that, there's the term social entrepreneur. Well, I would pray every entrepreneur, to your point, Julian, every entrepreneur is a social entrepreneur, because how could you not be? Especially when you look out your window every day and you see the climate change that's taking place. When you see, oh God, healthcare systems, education systems, every system that we know is crumbling down. Why? Because there's a whole lack of trust. Right?
That is 100% true. Yes.
Right? And there's trust. There's trust in self. There's intertrust between me and you. And then there's trust in the whole system overall. And that's why I'm really excited to see that we're kind of, local communities are starting to really gather together and say, instead of having somebody fly in, drop in via drone, what they think I should do, some little prescription, right? They don't really know what's going on with Mr. Johnson around the corner, and why, and they don't know what's going on, what happened in that cow pasture over there. And so they're taking it into their own hand. And I love that they're owning their own sovereignty, which then means they're going to have more comfort and more confidence in owning their own voice.
So would you say that doing those social impact awards was maybe almost a pivot, like that really changed your perspective in terms of what you valued and how you wanted to spend your career?
Yeah. Well, Yes. And I'll tell you, it was one of those things where I knew from that point on, that's what I was going to do. I had a role to play. I wasn't quite sure what,
Yeah.
but I knew so much that I couldn't turn away and not do it. And if I didn't, I would probably get sick because I'd be so out of alignment with myself. And I would be so disappointed internally. We've all had that feeling when you're supposed to be doing something that really rings true, and it's never sometimes the easy thing to do.
Yeah.
But I knew that I had to do that. And part of that led me to phase 2 of my career, which is kind of understanding the way money works and the nonprofit system. So those that weren't making, profit, but they were doing social good, what was going on in that world? So I worked with some amazing leaders, Melissa Bradley being one of them from 1863. And she was the first person who even referred to me as an ally. I hadn't even heard the term. And
how long ago was that? Because I'm interested to know, only because that's become, I think, more of a conversation now, but you've been doing this for a while.
Yeah. So that was, let me think about this. Yeah. 2011. 2010, 2011. Yeah. And I was like, what? And then, and from there, I realized, okay, I know I don't want to be, because I think there's issues with the nonprofit space and we need to help that world as well with systems. And then I switched hardcore. I'm like, all in to the money scene. So being an advisor to companies, but then also most recently working with the folks over at GoodLight Capital. And, their charge, they're in a process right now of a merger, but the charge there was to really help those historically marginalized communities of founders and women who are utilizing tech to solve the world's biggest problems. And then, during my stint prior to that, I was working with Katapult, which is in Oslo. And that's where I met the fabulous Viola when I started a podcast called Rebels with a Purpose. And that's where I was like, okay, there's so many people doing amazing things and nobody knows these people. We all hear about the same 25 people.
Yes, 100%.
Like high school. And so, and that you of all people know this because the great work you do lifting voices. So I met Viola then. She was one of the folks that I interviewed on my Rebels with a Purpose podcast. And then we reunited back in October, November. I was interviewing her because I'm getting ready to launch down the road a podcast to talk about trust. And we were like, oh my gosh. And we were sort of putting our heads together going, what the world needs is Tulle Box.
And here you are. So I want to back up a little bit because you started talking about the venture capital piece and the role that you played. Because here's the statistic I think, if you don't know, you should be aware of. Less than 3% of venture capital investments goes to women-owned businesses, and less than 1% goes to Black women-owned businesses. So the role that you played was so critical in terms of getting some of that funding to those communities that have been underrepresented and underfunded, quite honestly. So as you were working in those communities, what would you say were some of the challenges that you noticed for entrepreneurs in that space as they're trying to get funding? And then how did you support them in really solving some of those challenges?
I'm going to tell you, I think one of the biggest issues is that there aren't enough funders that look like them. And that world is out there. I know it is. Every month, every August, there's a group of very, well-to-do folks of color who meet for the Martha's Vineyard Financial Summit. I want to make sure that, and yes, they, I'm sure they are contributing and such, but there's always more that can be done. Always more that can be done. And I would say part of the challenge too is that money is part of it. But one, the person has to know what kind of money they want.
So speak on that for a second, because I think that's an important point. When you say what kind of money, what do you mean by that?
So for instance, what I would be tempted to recommend for a lot of people is, start with friends and family or start with angel investors. Because why? If you go with a VC, more often than not, you can end up losing your leadership position in a couple of years. You end up giving greater stakes of ownership in a couple of years. In other words, there's a lot of clawback in there, and there's a lot of strings attached. And I think there was a phase there where it became very sexy to be a part. Oh yeah, venture. But it's not a kind, and nor is it a very realistic form of capital, because literally for a lot, you have 18 months. TikTok goes that clock. And if you don't start to show a little bit of a hockey stick, you are like, all right, let's see. We'll give it another year, 2 years, 3 years. We'll try and figure out what we can do. And I just think, so I would go, and angels and angel networks are getting a lot more sophisticated, and they're beginning to actually act like micro VCs. And there are a lot of now as women are beginning to get more comfortable with money and with flexing their financial muscle, right? Making their own calls on the businesses that they want to support. They're going to be, more of them will be accredited investors. And an accredited investor is someone who either makes at least $250,000 on an individual level, or they have a net worth of combined income with family of over $1 million.
Okay.
And so,
that's a great overview, because I think a lot of people are not aware. Venture capital just sounds sexy, right? People want to say,
exactly.
They want to be able to say that I'm growing, I had a venture capital investment, but to your point, that may not always be the best thing. So
no, and can I just add a little
please.
And we'll have to talk because my voice carries. My husband wanted to go and get VC funding for his company, beep, beep, beep. And I was like, that's the last thing you want to do, because you're going to, he did a whole thing. They turned him down, and he ended up doing it a whole different way. But he got sucked into the sexy.
And it's easy because it sounds good.
You made it then. Yeah, billionaire ballers. Yeah.
Yes, but it doesn't always work out that way. So
there's
in your role, And thank you so much for sharing that, because I think a lot of times, again, people hear about different types of funding, but they may not be aware of the spectrum and where they fall on that spectrum of what's appropriate for them in the space that they're in, in
the phase that they're at, and the amount of money that they need, and with that, what's the best source of funding that you need at that level versus where you don't have to give everything away at the beginning. Right.
Yes.
And later on, okay, I'm at this point, I kind of am okay if somebody else comes in, or I'm okay to give a little piece of equity because of the introductions that they'll make. And that's the other thing for those of you who are looking for financial resources, and this is something I used to do, was I would remind them, there's dumb money, which just means people will invest in you and you just get their dollars and woo. But there's also smart money. And the smart money means they're going to make introductions for you. They're going to give you true feedback on your presentations. They're going to make recommendations on your business model. But to me, the most valuable is they're going to, it's going to hurt sometimes, but they're going to give you a cold, hard, fast no. As in, that's not an idea. That's a concept. Don't get distracted. Put that in the parking lot. Because so many entrepreneurs, fabulous visionaries, fabulous ideas, and next thing you know, your opportunity that you started with right there, just
And I do want to, I put this comment up from Christine about a true partnership, because I think that is such an important point that you're making, right? There are people who will give you money and expect you to just, give them the return on their investment. But there are others who they're like, I'm going to give you my money, but I want to make sure that I'm mentoring you through the process so that you are able, that it's a mutually beneficial relationship, right? It's not, and they truly want to see you win, right? And that's where it is a partnership.
And that's, I'm so glad Christine raised this point about the partnership. Exactly, because this is where the social capital comes in, right? And the political capital comes in. You want someone who's going to give all the kinds of capital, social, political. They're going to give you the mic. They're going to give you speaking opportunities. They're going to bring you
Mm,
to fancy opportunities where they're big net worth people where you might not be able to meet. They're going to make
yeah.
those introductions for you. They're going to
Mm,
speak to your power and ability when you are not in the room.
yeah.
And so that
Yeah.
next time you are in the room,
Wow.
that's a key one. So
That's
that's
powerful.
a great way of putting it. True partner.
That's powerful. And it almost sounds like not only are they an investor, they're actually also acting as a mentor.
Yes. To me, that's key.
Yeah.
Because that's just making sure your investment does well. That's just sound investing, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. That's true. So no, thank you for sharing that. I think that those were some incredible nuggets. So I would love to just hear more about, and I think, those listening want to hear more about how you really took your values in terms of making sure that those who were, usually underfunded and underrepresented, how did you take those values and make sure that though you lived those out in the work that you did in the venture capital space? Like, how did you bring those entrepreneurs in, or how did you even mentor maybe some of them while you were working at some of these firms?
Well, and it's funny because, I'm here now. We drove across the country from California. We moved to Charlottesville, Virginia, where UVA and Darden is one of the
Mm-hmm.
leading business schools. And they've got the Batten School of Entrepreneurship and all sorts of amazing opportunities. And I am involved in the ECUP series, which is a competitive business school competition where people come and you award win your money. And one of the groups that came through was this amazing duo of young women. And I was so excited to see them. And at first, there was a lot of apprehension in the room when they got up to present, but they really wowed everybody and they talked their numbers and such. And so afterwards, I walked up and said, hey, look, one, I think you're going to do just fine. Trust me, you've got this. Two, no matter what, you have your knowledge of your numbers and you're just keep going. Don't give up. Just stand up and own your
Mm,
stuff. And they went on
mm.
to win the competition. And then they got chosen by Techstars, which is a really big deal as a young 22-year-old woman.
22.
And
Wow.
their company is College Connect. And what they do is they help first generation students with their college applications and their writing and meeting up with different schools so that they stand a greater likelihood of getting into colleges.
Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah. So it's a really
That's
cool thing.
incredible.
But
Yeah.
so, I mean, like, I think the whole thing of allyship, one, first of all, tipping back to Christine, allyship, it, I think we use the wrong, what is that, preposition. It's not
Mm,
something we do for people. I mean, you could, but really
yeah.
it's in partnership with a group of people.
I
And
love that.
right? Because if it's the other way around, all it is it keeps that screwy power dynamic and hierarchy in place.
Yes.
And that's just dumb.
Yes.
And that's where a lot of people, with the best of intention, they do what I call performative allyship.
Okay, wait, let's talk about that. I know you're about to get into it. But listen, let me just say this. There was so much of that happened during the whole George Floyd
Oh,
situation.
oh,
I mean, there was so much of that. And I'm sure a lot of people listening and watching can relate to that, because when you look at the people who came out and said, oh, yeah, Black Lives Matter, we're doing this and that. And then you look at what some of those organizations, individuals, businesses are doing now, it's not aligned.
no,
It's not aligned. So
no.
please talk more on
Yeah,
that, please.
it was like a marketing opportunity. It was and that's where it was like the woke. It was the white fragility. It's the I'm the great white hope savior, helping all the little brown and yellow people that are lost,
Mm,
and without me, what are they going to do?
mm,
And it was stupid. It was just embarrassing. I was at a function where we were having a whole conversation because there were some indigenous members who were not feeling recognized. And then there were some people of color who were not feeling recognized. And there was this one woman who white woman, sat there and she said, "Oh my gosh, I feel so terrible. I wish I were Black."
Oh.
And I just said, "Oh my God, get up
Oh.
and get out. Just
Oh my
shut up."
gosh.
Nothing about that is even true,
Wow.
real, actual,
Wow.
about the situation at hand. Can we take the shining for once? Can you take the light off of you and put it on the situation at hand and hear the voices of those?
Mhm.
I just, and when I saw that, and FYI, this was in a group meeting of key impact players. So these were all people that knew, that were informed, that were everything. I mean, I understand why I get the whole sickness of the whole woke and this and that, and everyone's so
Mhm.
scared. And
Mhm.
so it was astonishing to me. And I think at the end of the day, and you started talking about how good this work is now, given the situation of the world at hand, what I've never understood is all you're doing is treating people the way you wish you would be treated. It is the
Mm.
most basic, whether you're church going religious or not, you're spiritual, you believe in karma,
Yeah.
whatever. It's
Yeah.
just be a good
It,
person,
it,
help
it's
somebody
that basic.
if they want it. A very
It,
important lesson I learned early on. I was 17 and I went to the Dominican Republic in 1978 with Amigos de las Americas, and I did inoculations. And so we'd be dropped off on a dirt road with the 19-year-old Raphael, my medical helper, and we'd get on a donkey and we'd ride through for the entire day. And I'd go into these crazy villages and give vaccinations and come back. And sure, were we helping these people? Yes. But did it mean that some of the men were going to be out of work for a few days, which meant who was going to eat? So there
mm,
was, when you're helping an ally, a partner, I'm going to say, frankly.
mhm.
And I know there's some people that are using co-conspirator and accomplice, and I don't like that either because that makes it sound like it's bad, it's naughty, it's nefarious, it's
I haven't heard
underhanded.
that, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I was like, but so for me, it's you gotta make sure your number one job is to understand, well, one, your privilege, your situation and walk in life, but
Mhm.
it's also what the issue is that matters to the people. Like,
Mm.
how can I
Not making assumptions,
serve?
actually asking,
How
what
can
do
I
they
serve
need?
you?
Yes, how can I say
How
yes?
can I be of service? Right? Do you
Mhm.
need, do you need me in this sort of, kind of a small rural village? Do you need me
Yeah,
to drop in? We've recognized you guys are, people are dying.
yeah.
And so we've done this great job. We just dropped a bunch of toilets and we're going to come back in a month and see how you're doing with them. We come back. What? You're not, what are you using the toilets for? We're using them to keep chickens because we need to eat. And the
Mm,
coyotes come and they eat the chickens. So
mm,
that was dumb,
mhm.
right?
Yeah,
Somebody should have done some
yeah,
information, which is more important to you, right?
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah,
asking the
yeah,
question, where can I help, as opposed to get your hands off, get your hands off. I got it
yeah,
fixed. There's no
yeah, yeah,
fixing. There's no
yeah,
fixing. It's
yeah.
how can I help and aid and serve you in getting your solution that you would like to move forth.
I think that is such an important point because I'm telling you, that whole white savior
Oh
complex, oh my
God.
goodness. We grew up seeing a lot of that, and we I think so many of it can say we're done. We were never with it. So I think that's such a critical point. And just to that point, given the role that you played and I think the insight that you have in terms of how to better partner with these underrepresented, marginalized communities, what would you say are some of the things that businesses, organizations, can do to make their workplaces more inclusive, to make them
Yeah.
more
Uh, and I'm going to go one more step, belonging, right? Because
Mhm.
I know we've had alphabet soup when it comes to DEI,
Look,
D,
every day I look up, there's another letter added.
it's like, what? When did that get in there?
Right.
So, with that, and what I mean by belonging is that, after week 2 and your little lunch buddy goes away, you actually feel that you can hang out and you feel great and people are listening to you and they acknowledge, they see
Mhm.
you. I'd say they see you, they witness you.
Yeah.
Um, and they hear you. And I think there's some really low hanging fruit for companies is seriously, it's acknowledging that an issue persists, even when you think it doesn't. It does. Everyone, there's unconscious bias. There just is, and it's. I don't know when it's ever going to end, but it may never end. So let's just be cognizant of that, and let's just always be in that kind of behavior. So to that end, then acknowledge it and then learn, and that means listening, getting educated. That does not mean having your employees that are in those communities educate you. That is not what I'm saying. I do not do that. That's their job.
Wait, say that one more time. Say that one more time. Because here's the thing. I've never worked in corporate. I've had corporations as clients. But so many of my friends who do work in corporate and work in those types of situations or workplaces, you hear all the time how they get tired of being the ones, Black History Month comes around. Hey, who do you think we should feature? Hey, so, but
yes, it's like a focus group. It's like, stop it, or else give me a lifetime supply of M&Ms. I mean, seriously. So
I think that's such an important point, though.
No, it is. It is not those communities' jobs to educate us on what right and wrong. And then people say, well, how will we ever learn? Well, listen, read, watch movies.
Listen, YouTube University, okay, Madame Google.
Right. Yes, exactly. Speak. Join, you know what? Join different communities where they have these conversations. I mean, I think that goes with anyone that you disagree with. It's always, interesting to me to see, like, how did we even get into this such polarized positions? But seriously, it's also making sure that I'm going to say lead from the bench, not from the field. So the next time you're invited to speak, I started doing this a lot. It's if you want me to speak, I'm going to bring a high potential up and comer with me, and I'm going to allow her, him, them to speak with me.
That's powerful.
I want to do an intergenerational conversation.
That's powerful.
Or I'm not going to talk at all. I have this really great person who I think you should speak with. Here's their name, their number. Allow me to make the introduction.
But you know what, Kate? I mean, that is so, let me just tell you, that is rare, right? Because I think
I know, but it's so easy to do.
It's easy, but or I should say it's simple. It's simple, but it's not necessarily easy, because you have some people who are really about, being front and center. They want to be the person that is this and that. But I think, man, you're just dropping some nuggets in this conversation, and I knew that you would, because it is a simple thing to do, and it's not something that everybody does. But what have you found when you have done that? What have you gotten from that? Like, what have you found has been the benefit of?
For starters, what I was going to say is, I'm sitting here talking to you about this. I become more the person front and center, which was never my intention, ever, 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 ever. It was generosity of spirit, right? Yes. Pulling a room up at the table, asking the questions of the other people. I have, which is, I'm sure, going to come as a shock to people listening. When I'm in a meeting group, I'll say, oh, I know, I have an answer. And I've trained myself to just and wait for others. And if someone has a point and I could add on it, I have to ask myself, does it really add value, or is that me wanting me to say something for me? So I'm not all I shine my halo, but it still has a few rust marks on it.
Yeah.
So, and that's something that I will always have to do because I'm more of an extrovert. And that's the other thing. Quiet people, you got to ask them what's on their mind. They are some of the brightest because and have one-on-ones and understand, as a company, understand who your extroverts are, understand who your introverts are, and understand, and I would say, and it doesn't take a lot to do this, customize how you handle your reviews with them, how you handle feedback with them. Never ever give feedback in big group. Go one-on-one.
Yes.
Ask questions, let them know ahead of time. Hey, I've noticed you're really good at this. Would you be comfortable with me asking you to, lead the conversation on this? If they say no, respect that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love what you're sharing because, as we're having this conversation about, being a great ally / partner, that's actually really speaking to being a good leader.
It is. And
Yeah.
so that goes back down to, doing a lot of work, right? Because a lot of going within, knowing strengths, knowing weaknesses. And this is the piece that I think is the trickiest of all is, although I've gotten quite good at it, is admitting, you know what? I'm confused about this. Can anyone help me out with a solution on this? So throw it up. Because when you do that, oh my gosh, that makes it safe for everybody to not know.
Yeah.
It also it invites so much more interesting collaboration and just curiosity. You can laugh at yourself and you can bring everybody back to the time you did the thing, and they're going to go, oh my gosh, you're a human. And it is really also, as a leader, it's really, 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 really important for you to be open to receiving feedback, because like all feedback, it's direction. Because if you aren't as a leader and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I got to take this company or this team here, and you're blathering on there, when someone's getting back to you with feedback, they're telling you, okay, you want to go west, but you're taking us due east. And so in order to get us back on track, you've got to go that. You've got to make a few changes and a few shifts. And then if you do that, they're going to be to it. And the whole thing is just so much more relaxed and could be so much more fun. Because we spend too much time working.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm curious because I think you have such a unique perspective in terms of how you see allyship as partnership.
Yeah.
Did you ever, in the work that you did you ever get pushback from people who were not aligned with those values?
So I was fascinated, and it might have been a cultural thing. With, when I was at SOCAP, we righted a lot of historic, I won't say wrongs is strong. I would say missed opportunity. Well, I will say there was wrong in the sense that making speakers pay, and what ended up happening was there were a number of folks of color who were speakers, and they felt that they were being singled out. That wasn't the case, but we just took it down to dirt and made it right. So that was good. So that really gave me an eye to making sure that we had lots of different voices, different mix, new voices being included. So when I went to Katapult, which, mind you, is in Oslo, which is in Norway.
And these are all venture capital firms that you're talking about.
Yes. And I will just say, I was essentially diverse because of the color of my hair. Everybody else is blonde and blue-eyed, right? And when I said to them, and we were planning our Future Fest, I said, okay, I want us to really we've got to get more, diversity in the mix. We've got to get more voices in the mix. To which I was told, diversity, that's a US thing. Oh. That's a US fad. That's your problem. We don't have that problem. I'm like, well, I could, wow. Right? And you're doing a thing called Future Fest? Anyway, I was excited because they did end up, I was sharing with them that I thought that the African continent had extraordinary opportunity, especially when it comes to regen. I've always thought that the African continent and Latin America too, because of the resources, there's true innovation. True. It's where so many firsts have taken place.
And a lot of it has been out of necessity.
Correct. Exactly. Yeah. And there wasn't a lot of shiny stars. Oh my God, I got listed on the TechCrunch, blah, blah, blah. It wasn't at all about that. It's like, I got to make sure we get water so that we can, plant crops so that we can eat, or that there's a road so that someone who has a job, the women can at least walk safely. Right.
Yeah.
Anyway, I could go on that front.
So that was an interesting response. Shocking. But I think it's also important to recognize that the way we think like our culture, it doesn't necessarily translate to other places, and being ready to respond,
That's the
recognizing
main
that part.
thing. And that's what I learned when I was in Dominican Republic, and I was shocked that it came a few years later. Still, it's like, wow, that's still going on. And I think, there were some along the lines. So when at GoodLight, we were in the process of trying to raise a fund, and it came right near on the tailwind of the Fearless Fund. And those of you, the Fearless Fund was women run, trying to support women founders of color.
Yep.
And they were doing amazing.
Yep.
They were doing great. And then all of a sudden, a bunch of idiots stood up and said it was racist.
Discriminatory. Oh man, that's a whole other thing.
And we won't go into that, but
yes.
I mean, what we need there is everybody to stand up and say, just pipe down, cops. Shush.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. That's a whole
separate conversation.
Yeah.
But what I took on was for we talked a little bit about affirmative action and education, and how unfortunately, the Supreme Court is sitting there, voting down in my beloved state of Virginia, making it so that people, you can't, they're taking away different opportunities for folks. And what I was going to say is, don't lose hope, because my husband has a company that's involved in upper education. And so the admissions directors, they've got workarounds for that. They're broadening, for instance, first generation. So they're really using that as first generation college attendee, not necessarily to the country. They're widening things like income. So they're starting to get a little crafty critter, which is great, because that kind of creative and expansive thinking is really what's going to continue and enable people to try and get some kind of an upper kind of education and a chance to have a voice.
And I'm so glad you said that, because I think that's such an important point. I've been having similar conversations with people like, okay, with everything that's happening, like, what is the future of DEI? And, all of the things that really encompasses, right? Because that does include affirmative action and funding for underrepresented, underfunded communities. So I'm glad you said that, because I think it is so important for people to recognize that we still have opportunity. We still need to be speaking out about these things and making sure our voices are heard, so that these institutions, these businesses, these organizations, they know that this matters, and we vote with our dollars, right?
Right.
At the end of the day.
Exactly. You vote with your wallet, you vote with your feet. Wallet, what you're going to buy, and that's another thing that everybody can do. And that's another thing that every company can do when you're selecting a vendor.
Yes.
Make it, women run, or minority, marginalized run. The other thing too, obviously, hiring people, that's a really easy thing.
Yeah.
I think, again, just learning together, like taking on projects that are in the community.
So collaboration.
Collaboration.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And so also, I was just going to say, educating, there's a really cool group. I can't remember the name of it. That's here in Charlottesville, but it was started by a couple of guys, one white and one black. And it was because, the white guy was part of the country club group and the black guy was, not. And they become friends. And the country club guy was saying, oh my gosh, there's so many amazing people in your neighborhood that are doing things. And, and they said, you should get to know them. So they started this running group. So every morning at 6 a.m., everybody gets together and they run through the different neighborhoods of Charlottesville.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that everybody gets to know everybody.
Yes.
We do a program here called Tom Tom Festival. It's coming up April 17th through the 20th. And it's really about getting the community to get to know each other again and really support one another.
And I think that's important, because at the end of the day, a lot of times people make assumptions about people just because they haven't taken the time to get to know them. So I definitely appreciate you sharing that point. Now, I do want to, because we're going to be wrapping up soon. I want to encourage anybody who's watching, if you have any questions for Kate, definitely post them in the comments and we'll answer those. And I want to ask you, because you've had such a diverse career, right? Publishing and venture capital and nonprofit, and just such a very wide range. How did you end up with Viola at the Tulle Box? So tell us a little bit more about that, and how really the Tulle Box is kind of, it sounds like it's bringing everything that you've learned together.
Yeah,
In that space.
it is, and it's funny. So it's one of those synchronistic moments where we were reunited right when we were supposed to be, and I was just kind of coming down to deciding that I was going to start shifting away from GoodLight, and that I had, it had come to fulfillment. I couldn't really do anything more there, and so I was going to really start focusing on putting my mouth and my everything towards this purpose-driven work, and working on projects with people that I wanted to. And how could I really, after all I had seen, I wanted to get more women comfortable with their power, comfortable with themselves, comfortable with their power, but then also comfortable with money, so financial literacy, and being a leader and seeing themselves as a leader. Even if other people didn't, you can still see yourself as one. And so a fateful conversation with Viola, and she was just shifting out of her previous company that she founded, Ovamba Solution. And we were just talking about, God, there's nothing really out there that, I mean, on the one hand, seemingly it looks like there's a lot out there, very chaotic, blah, blah, blah. And everyone has a marketing ploy, easy to do in 1, 2, 3.
Yes.
But what I hadn't found, and I don't know if she hadn't either, is that it's not everything from a holistic approach. So you inner and then enter. So once I trust me and I get really clear on who I am and what my human design, we tap into human design, we tap into a lot of human analytics, and you get really clear on what do you care about, and also what are your strengths. And so with that being the case, what kind of really is the path you're meant to be on? Then we shift into that enter, which means we get our hands into workshops and things like that. And also firming you up with both soft skills and hard skills for being a good leader. And then from there, how do you then take that leadership quality and really take it out into the broad-based community? Because that's really where I see us as women. That's why, one, there's a reason why we have the babies. We're the strongest. Two,
real talk.
Right? Two, whatever we do, it would never enter our minds. There are some, but for the most part, it wouldn't enter our minds to do something that would overall hurt the community at large.
Yes.
Right?
We're nurturers. That's what we do.
I think everybody does it once. There might be one little ego misstep, and then you go, ugh, I'm not doing that again. And I think it's actually when that does happen to you. So I would also urge folks. Well, anyway, so that's what we're doing at the Tulle Box. Is we're going to be doing some of it at Fabulous Emerge Live. Yay, yay. Very excited.
Yeah.
But that's really what it is it's to get you aware, prepared, and then ready for anything come way that
I
life brings
that. Oh my gosh. When I tell you, look, when I think our first conversation we had, it was like we had known each other forever. So I was like so excited, one, to have you in this conversation, and it's going to be an ongoing conversation, because I think it's so necessary. So much of what you shared, it's not just difficult to do, but it does take a shift in mindset and a commitment to the process and the community that you are, looking to serve, I think. And I'm so excited to have you and Viola. If you all did not see Viola's interview, you can definitely see it in the replays on whatever platform you're in, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, all of the replays are here. Definitely watch that, because Kate and Viola are such they're dynamic individually, but talk about a dynamic duo. I'm so excited to have both of you speaking at Emerge Live. So you all, this April 19th to the 21st, We are hosting Emerge Live for visionary Black women who are looking to uncover purpose, which is what you all are helping women do, and rediscover joy. Because listen, we have been through a lot. And I think we're in a space now where we just really want to connect with other women authentically. We want to live our life on purpose. Look, it's too little time, and time is too precious to spend it doing stuff that you don't really care about. So what does that look like if you are truly living out your purpose? And Kate and Viola are going to be doing a whole workshop to walk you through some of these things that we're talking about and help you figure out like what is your next. But on top of that, because they're both venture capital experts, they're also going to speak about the mindset that's required and what you need to do to prepare if you are looking to raise funding or venture capital for your business. So you all, it is going to be incredible. We have general registration open. Definitely secure your spot now. We expect to sell out, and I know that it is going to be such a phenomenal, joy-filled experience. So go to emergeliveexp.com, secure your spot today so you can connect with these amazing ladies and a host of other phenomenal speakers that we have coming to Emerge Live. And I'm going to check real quick to see if there are any questions. Okay, so no questions, but Kate, I just want to say, and I'm going to agree with Viola. Isn't Kate marvelous? Absolutely brilliant. Yes, yes, Viola. I can see why you all connected, and I am honored to have both of you really sharing your brilliance at Emerge Live, and looking forward to additional conversations, because this is, like I said, it's going to be an ongoing conversation. It is absolutely needed. And Kate, I would love for you to share maybe one or two things that or just, what you would say to those who are, they really want to find a way to work with, partner, be an ally to, these marginalized communities, but they're not sure where to start. What would you say
Oh
to
my gosh.
those folks?
Start with the people that are sitting beside you. I mean, seriously, it's everywhere. And turn around and ask the question, hey, what's the biggest issue you're facing right now, and how can I help solve it?
Ooh,
I wish it weren't that blatant and obvious and easy, but it is. The other thing, and this is not really ally oriented, but it's a fun little fact that I would hope give the listeners a little swagger when you're going in and getting ready in the event that you're doing a pitch. Just know that women-owned businesses, for every for every VC dollar that's given, women-owned businesses return 78 cents on that dollar versus men, which are anywhere from 31 to 51%. And hello, we exit a year earlier. So I say that because you listen to you. Do not listen. If I listened to everybody, my life wouldn't exist. I'm not kidding you. It's really true. And I smile now because when people ask me, how did you do it? I can't tell you how many people tried to kick me down. Do not listen. No one knows you better than you.
I love
And
that.
that's your best ally.
I love that. That is brilliant. Thank you so much, Kate. And real quick, before you all go, I do want to remind you that we are here every Wednesday at 7 p.m. EST, LinkedIn, LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. And so next week, we're having a conversation with Nakia Gray, who is another brilliant entrepreneur. She is an IP lawyer. And so she's going to be talking about, yes, once you have all these brilliant ideas, you have this business idea, how do you protect your genius?
That's a good one.
Yes, that's a big one, because listen, you can put in all this work, raise all this money, and somebody can steal that idea. You can't do anything about it.
So true. And it happens all the time.
So if you all know that you need this, make sure you are here next week at 7 p.m. The event is already live, so make sure you RSVP so that you can get a notification when we go live. And Kate, thank you again. Thank you all for watching. Everybody said this was a great conversation. And Viola wanted to have you say that one quote again about the return on investment for women versus men.
Oh, for women versus men?
Yeah.
Sure. So for every VC dollar given, in terms of return, women-run businesses return 78 cents on the dollar versus men, which is anywhere between 31 to 51.
Listen. We're gonna get this money, ladies. We're gonna get the right kind of money, though. That's the right
kind of money that's actually gonna stay and is gonna be smart money and not just stupid old dumb money.
I love that. Kate, thank you so much.
Thank you guys so much. And thank you all for listening. Incredible. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been incredible. You all have a great night, and we will see you next week.
All right. Thanks, everybody.